And we're back. Welcome, everyone, to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me, the most special man with the most special place in my heart, man. It's Bill. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I thought you were gonna say no. This ain't Brit. Brit
This
didn't change to look like me. Heaven forbid for her. That's for sure. But because that would not be good for her. But no, I appreciate being on. Thank you so much. I guess you just want me to get spun up, so let's do it.
No, this is one of those times where you're at the lull in off season, nothing's happening. So if we need to get the batteries charged, man. So that's why you're here. So before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows just like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live, or in Bill's case, Broncos Breakdown.
Thank you.
You can follow them at the MHRT Network on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I think we have Threads and Instagram at MHRT Network. And if you like us, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook, and then Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, Bill, let's jump right into this here. There's a few things that I wanted to discuss, and no more perfect of a person to discuss it with than you. So a while back, I was thinking, with the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup, obviously they're no longer the defending Stanley Cup champions, and we'll talk about that later down the road. But just the fact that the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, and then the ensuing seasons for other Denver sports teams, namely the Nuggets in this case, but it will extend it to the Broncos and the Rockies. Do you believe that had any effect, the Avalanche winning had any effect on the other teams in any capacity? What are your thoughts?
Well, the Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets were close. Denver Nuggets were really, really close. But I think that when they saw the Avalanche have to endure what they did to win the Stanley Cup, I mean, they had to beat St. Louis. They had to, take down the defending, two-time Stanley Cup champions in Tampa Bay. That gave them a spark, in my opinion, because they've never beaten the Nuggets. They've never beaten the Nuggets in the playoffs. I think that said, hey, you know what? If they can do that with that energy, let's grab a hold of some of that energy and do it ourselves. And by golly, they did. And then they took down Miami. And I think maybe not directly, but indirectly, it got up here and they said, hey, we can do the same thing. Now, with the Broncos, we don't know, because we're going into a new season with a new head coach, new, offensive coordinator. Everything's new. So that remains to be seen. Rockies, what can I say? Sorry.
Well, maybe we cross that bridge when they get to over 500 or something in the season. But,
yeah, but as far as the Nuggets, yeah, I definitely feel that they pulled off of that energy and how the Avalanche did. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, because this being the first time the Nuggets went to the finals, winning it, so now they're just kind of like our avatar, just beat me to it here. They are now 100% in any final that they've gone to, as far as winning them.
Wow.
Which is pretty fun. So 1 for 1
awesome.
for the Nuggets, 3 for 3 for the Avalanche. That's a pretty fun statistic.
Yeah.
So my 2 cents with this, though, is, being roommates, so to speak, there at Ball Arena, there is that, especially with basketball and hockey, right, being that kind of arena buddy type deal, there is kind of this ebb and flow, at least from what I've noticed, with teams that share those types of arenas for different sports, right? Fan base is the same, right? The same people that walk out of the arena after the hockey game will be the same ones that walk into the arena for the basketball game the next day, right? The passion, the energy, it all is the same, right? They're the same people from the same town for the same purpose. So I would say, if it were me, if I'm the Nuggets and I see the parade that the Avalanche had, just the kind of like with what you said, the dedication, the fact that they had to really, really dig in to win that championship, I think you're right. I think mentally they said, hey, if the Avalanche could do that, so can we. Like that, that just give them a bit more of that gumption to push on, push farther, push deeper. And ultimately it panned out. My follow-up question is, so being the Broncos connoisseur that you are there any, I guess, attributes that you have noticed that the Avalanche have that you would like to see you roll into the Broncos this next season?
Absolutely. Determination. I didn't see that. I've not seen that last 6 years. Last six seasons with the Broncos, I haven't seen the determination. They go into game, they maybe get ahead 3-0, and then all of a sudden it collapses. I don't see the passion, the energy. I think with Sean Payton, that's definitely going to change. Absolutely. He's not going to put up with it. So with the Avalanche having the determination to get by St. Louis, get by who is the other one? Was it Winnipeg? Am I wrong?
Nashville first, St. Louis, and then Edmonton.
That's right, Edmonton. That's what I meant. And then going to the final, they had to be determined. Nothing was going to stop the Avalanche. Absolutely nothing. But I don't see that with the Broncos, and that bothers me. So yeah, what you're asking is, can the Broncos take something away from the Avalanche? Absolutely. And it starts this year, and it starts this practice. Absolutely.
I totally agree. One that I even thought of, just kind of when I was mulling that over, I thought about like sustained depth, because that was one thing that really, really played in the Avalanche's favor the year they won the Cup, was they were a deep team. And a lot of those, even though there were some new kids on the block, right, they still sustained themselves as role-playing guys. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking.
But that comes from coaching too. And sure. Bednar is amazing coach. He's got great assistants. We didn't have that with the Broncos. They were dysfunctional. We had no idea which direction. It is now in place. So I think we're going to see a whole lot different.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're right about the Avalanche. Absolute depth is key.
Yep, totally agree. So I'm very interested to see kind of what does happen this coming season for the Broncos, especially now, with the new head coaching that we have, a few key players coming in, other players leaving. Like there's a whole, with football, just kind of like hockey, there's kind of a new face, right? Face with the team, and how there's going to be a new face. And you've addressed it multiple times on your show. We've seen and whatnot, there's going to be a new face with the Colorado Avalanche as well, with these offseason moves that they have made, specifically in the acquiring of Jonathan Drouin, Ryan Johansson, Ross Colton, and Miles Wood, those being the big four. That is one of the things that I've always found interesting about this sport, is how quickly, I guess, a player can acclimate to a new team, even after a mid-season trade. You take the Josh Manson and Arturi Lehkonen the year that we won the Cup. That was a mid-season trade, and they just gelled right in. A day later, they're on the ice playing the game. So it's an interesting sport to follow, especially when you have these types of players. But when you get an off season and you bring a whole brand new band into the stage, and you have a practice, you have all these workouts and stuff, the team gels a lot better. So that way, once you hit the ice, you're skating on all cylinders. Everyone's got the chemistry there. How important now is team chemistry? This goes for any Denver sports, but I'll say for you, the Broncos, and for me, the Avalanche. Like, what can team chemistry bring, and how can that propel a team?
Well, I can talk about the Avalanche as well as the Broncos, but sure. As far as the Avalanche, I think what it is it's so similar to what you do. I mean, you got forwards, you got center, you got defensemen. They all know their part. If you have a centerman and he knows he has to cross the net, or he has to play back, or he has to go to one side or the other, that's pretty much what's the word? Indigenous or whatever. It's pretty much similar to, I mess up words all the time. It's pretty much similar to, what other teams do. It's just a matter of a play setup. Football's a little different. You come in, you've got different plays, you've got different schemes, you've got different blocking. It's a whole different scenario than hockey. So I think when a player comes from one team to another, even in midseason, they can adapt because all they have to do is say, okay, this guy's going this way. Okay, I know I go this way. He's crashing the net. I know I need to back out. That kind of. It's not really complicated. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's not complicated. I mean, I don't play hockey, but I'm just saying compared to the NFL and the Broncos and their scheme and all that kind of stuff going up, it's totally different. I think it's easier to adapt to going to a team in hockey than it would be going midseason to a team in football.
Yeah, and I'd absolutely agree with that because even though, like you said, the schemes are very close to being the same and whatnot, they have different verbiage for a cover two, for example, or what their goal line blitz is going to be, or on the defensive end, or what offensive. They've got all this different, the quarterback's listing off key words and audibles are different. So it and to gain chemistry in the team, to understand the I guess the strategies, the naming, like I said, the verbiage and stuff is a lot more difficult for a football player to do. Just because, for those reasons, there's everyone's listening, everyone's watching, they're gaining all this information. You throw 10 guys on the ice and just say, go beat each other up. That's easy to do. Any guy can slot right in and do that. But it's a fun thing to just watch, as far as the communication between teams, in this case, the Denver sports teams, because the one thing I have noticed, and this is through social media, being there, I even toured Mile High Stadium last March.
I did that in 2017. Amazing.
And just how closely knit these organizations are, being the different sports that they are. It really is something fun to see because, here in Utah, we have the Utah Jazz basketball and then Real Salt Lake, which is soccer. They're intertwined, but we don't have all the major sports. So to see a team or a city have everything put together as one, supporting each other, I kind of going back to the initial question now, I really do think that has some type of a supporting cast type feel. When one team does good, it seems like everyone else is kind of brought up in one way or another.
Well, it's kind of like family. If you think about family, if somebody achieves something and you're trying to strive for that same achievement, like say a college graduation or college degree or something, and somebody's in college, go, man, I want to get the same thing. I mean, it's energetic. You feed off of it. I mean, it happens in jobs. If you got, a really good friend, it happens in business. It happens in families, marriage or whatever. It happens in everything. So yes, I do totally agree with that. Yeah. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's an adrenaline rush or something.
Yes.
Lack for a better word, but it's a push. It's a push that makes you better. And I totally agree 100%.
Yep, I love it. Great answers. Okay, shifting gears here. We're going to be doing this is way far in advance, okay? But I do want to discuss this now because the day will come in a year's time about the free agents for next season. So like I said, we talked about the free agents, and there still might be some moves and stuff that happen throughout the rest of the offseason until practice and stuff begins. But next season is what I'm looking for a specific couple of people. Now, obviously, there's going to be your Jack Johnsons, your Curtis McDermotts, your Andrew Coglianos, the older veteran players that have been around the block. They've signed small 1-year deals. Those are what they are, right? Take them as they are. But there are a couple of people that I want to know from you, Bill, and I'll also put in my 2 cents. What direction do the Avalanche go, all things considered, with the cap hopefully jumping up and these particular players? So let's start with the first one here. There's 2 that I want to talk about. The first one being Devon Taves, the defenseman. He's being paid $4.1 per year. what if you were the, being the GM or Joe Sakic or Chris McFarland, whoever? I guess the first question is, do you keep him? Second, how much, or what do you do to, I guess, keep him here in Colorado?
All right. Who's the owner of the Colorado Avalanche? Kroenke, correct?
The Cronkies.
Okay. Yeah. So I say pay Taves. Absolutely pay him because he is solid. He is absolutely solid. He's a great defenseman. He's a great leader. He's a great team player. Don't let this guy go. We let who was it? Nazem Kadri leave. That absolutely irritated me to no end. Mm-hmm. Irritated me because why are you letting this guy go? Don't do it again. Hello, Cronkies, don't do it again. Don't, because that is stupid. You got to pay your players. Pay your players. Yes, it may take a little bit of a hit, but guess what? If you win another Stanley Cup, it's all worth it, correct? Because you make bank. Don't do it. Don't let these guys walk.
Yep, I agree. If it were me, I would also do everything I could to keep Devon Taves, mm-hmm. and for a couple of reasons. So you have to remember, being a defenseman, your main objective is not to score goals. You will have plenty of assists, though. But here's the thing: he still scores.
Yep.
A point per game and a half, 2 games, mm-hmm. whatever. He was a 50-point scorer the last 2 seasons, right?
So I know you're. Hang on. Let me interject something.
Yeah, go for it.
Let me ask you a question. If you're the owner or the general manager, would you let those goals leave and go somewhere else? That would be stupid. You can't.
And that's just it. Is you also need to look at who Devon Taves has been paired with the last 3 seasons.
Yep.
Soon to be 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's Cale Makar.
Yep.
In my opinion, out of the entire league, there are no better pairings. There might be some that could be as good depending on the day, but there are no better defensive pairings than Cale Makar and Devon Taves.
Yep.
That team chemistry, like we alluded to earlier, that particular defensive pairing chemistry is something that, in my mind, is unmatched in the NHL.
Yep.
And that is not something I want to just have walk away because a team offered more money than we were able to do. So that's why, in my opinion, having those type of players around, such as Devon Taves, the way he works on the ice, the powerhouse that he really is, but he's also kind of just this kind of, I don't even know how to say it, this field general. It sure seems like, where he can take command of a game, but he can do that quietly, which is the most bizarre thing. Is he doesn't have to go with a giant spotlight on him saying, "Here I am." He can take command of a game quietly and feed the puck to where it needs to go, which is why you see his assist numbers were just outrageously high over the last couple of seasons. So that would be my go-to is you need to do anything you can to keep him.
Okay, well, my thought, piggybacking off of what you said, my thought is chemistry. You've got Devon Taves and Cale Makar, 2 high-powered defensemen that know how to play defense and be offensive-minded. Mm-hmm. If you break up this chemistry, what are you doing to the defense? I mean, seriously, what are you doing? You can't do that. We did that with Kadri. We can't do it again. I can't emphasize enough we can't do it again.
Well, and going to your point with Kadri, like, we took him out. Well, I should say he went other places. We couldn't retain him, I guess is what I should have said. But it left a hole in the 2C spot, one that ended up not being able to be filled from either JT Compher or Alex Newhook, both of which, guess what, are no longer on the team because they could not meet the expectations that the Avalanche had set in the season prior, aka winning the Stanley Cup. So you take that away with Devon Toews. Let's assume he does the same thing. Somebody waives an obscene amount of money that the Avalanche are not willing to match. He goes. I think it's going to be a question of, can Bo Byram now fill Devon Toews' shoes?
I don't. You know what?
That's a hard ask, right?
Yeah.
That is very difficult to do. And that's not something I want. That's not a bridge I want to cross.
Nope.
Just because you if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I love Bo Byram. Don't get me wrong. I love the kid. I just don't think he's mature enough to step into what Devon Toews and who's the other guy I just mentioned?
Cale Makar.
Yeah, Cale Makar, Devon Toews and Cale Makar have the chemistry. I just don't think Bo Byram is at that level. I think he needs another, coaching from the players on the ice to get to that level. I just don't think he's there yet. And that scares me going forward.
Well, and you talk about maturity as well. These two, Cale Makar, even though he's still pretty young, he's very mature for his age. And obviously being a Conn Smythe winner, you can trust the guy, right?
That elevates you.
And Devon Toews, who's right up there with him.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing I liked about last season is when we had all those injuries that occurred, right? There was a time where the defense was hit really hard with those. They were able to split those two so that Cale Makar would be on one line, Devon Toews would be on the other, and still sustain the depth that they need on the defensive end.
Because they were, in my opinion, because they were the field general, ice general, whatever, on the ice. Absolutely.
Yep, I totally agree. So I think we're both in agreement. He needs to stay. I am confident the Avalanche would want to keep him too. I'm also at a point where I think Devon Toews is more than happy here. I mean, you've seen him do all this kind of humanitarian work for Denver and all kinds of great things. So my hope is, like, as soon as that free agency hits, or even before, like, I think it would be awesome if the Avalanche could come to a deal before free agency even breaks out next season.
Absolutely. You don't want to go any further than that.
And have 8-year deal, man. Have him for time, because you can't afford to lose a player just like Devon Toews because of all the stuff we've talked about. Okay, and the next one. This one's going to be a bit more of an interesting discussion. And this is going to be the goaltender Pavel Francouz being a free agent this next year. He was living off of a $2 million a year average. What do you do here? This one becomes a bit more interesting, but what happens? What do you do with Pavel Francouz?
I mentioned this on the Avalanche cluster puck. Avalanche neighborhood, and with Mike, and I said, you know what? When we lost Darcy Kemper, I said that was the stupidest thing we could have done. Stupidest thing. How do you let your Stanley Cup championship goalie leave, and then you bring in a backup quarterback to put in him? Then you've got another backup in Francouz. I like Francouz. I do. I'm not sold on either goalie. I'm really not. I mean, Gorgiev had his great games, and he has pathetic games. Francouz had his great games. He has pathetic games. I just don't know about Francouz. I like the guy. I really do. I think he really tries hard. I think he really puts a tremendous amount of effort. But we'll get into the defense a little bit later on, because I got some. I'm gonna blow up on that one for sure.
This is where it's gonna get fun.
But I love Francouz, and he can't do it all himself. But the bottom line is, how much does he want? Is he going to be satisfied being a backup goalie? Is Gorgiev going to sustain being the number one goalie? I don't know. I don't know what direction. I know we got Gorgiev for another year or so.
We got him for the next 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So we got him for the next 2. So what do you do with Francouz? Francouz said, hey, I don't want to be a backup. I want to be a freaking starter. This guy, this guy sucks. I want to be the starter. you know, and I came in and did what I needed to do. I don't know. I don't know. Frank Coach
Yeah.
to me in the championship season was phenomenal, and
Hmm.
I just don't think he wants to be a backup.
Well, and championship season, but kind of going off of what you said, and I've said this I don't know how many times now on the podcast here. You have to remember he played half of that postseason,
Oh, absolutely.
right? And one of them being a sweep in the Western Conference Finals,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
you know he is capable of being a starter because he can win games at the most important times.
Yep.
But the question is exactly what you said. Is he going to be satisfied having those 2-to-1 ratio games where he'll play, 30 games or whatever compared to Georgiev's 50? If he is, great. Maybe we pay him the same because it's not really on the books to financial burdens, whatever. But that's the next question, is because he can prove to be starting material, there could be like a San Jose or an Anaheim or something like that, if they continue to have these goalie problems, that want to have something addressed, and they'll say, hey, let's give him the chance. That's
Yep.
exactly what we did with Georgiev, right?
Yep.
And so that's the
So
hard part, because he's like, I don't even know how to put this. He is the best backup you can have out of
sure,
a lot of
that's
people
what
that are
I'm
there.
saying.
He's one of the best out there. So it's like, do you really want to risk letting him walk and then pulling in somebody that either he is an established name and you grabbed him, great, you got lucky, or you take a risk on one of the new guys that you have in the AHL? I just don't know. So that's why for me it's like, I'd love to keep him as long as he's happy with what he's doing there.
All right, let me ask you a question.
Go for it.
Let's say we keep him. Does he beat out Gorgiev to be the starting goalie? In my opinion, I hope that happens. I'll tell you why. But just like you said, he has proven himself to win in big games. Gorgiev hasn't. That bothers me. We've had leads of what, 3-0, 4-0, and we lose 5-4. Come on, man. You serious?
Yeah, well, and that one, I mean, the goalie is to blame, but so is the rest of the team, especially
And
when
we'll
you're
get
injury
into that.
riddled,
That's for sure.
which we'll get into here. But I guess here's the thing: it's kind of like, I'm almost reminded of when Dak Prescott took Tony Romo's job.
Okay.
Because he just ended up being better. He just outplayed him for the position. Granted, an injury was occurring, but he still proved that he could take the team, and now he's the franchise quarterback. In this one, I think it's kind of almost like a ride the hot hand type deal, because they're both kind of right there, you know. So if Francouz is playing out of his mind, let him run a few
That's
games.
what I'm saying.
Just see where it takes you, because it's this ebb and flow thing that I've talked about roughly a year ago. Not a year ago. We weren't even a thing a year ago. But late in the season, where Georgiev was on the string of games that they were winning.
Yeah.
And so we were like, great, hot hand and stuff. But then all of a sudden, just stuff, he just, the whole team just kind of hit a brick wall. That's where they brought in Francouz.
Right.
He kind of rekindled that, and they kind of got back to where they needed to go. So I'm honestly wondering if maybe that's what they do. Instead of calling it your starter and backup, you just have 1A, 1B, and you alternate every other game, so that they share 41 games apiece. I don't know. Because if they play both tremendously, right? First of all, you have to be laughing hand over fist, because you just have two phenomenal goalies. But if he proves himself to be better this year than Georgiev, I have no reason, because you want to win the game. You want to win games. And if he's the best chance that you have to do that, then he's your best chance, and you roll with him.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yep. So those are the two big free agents that we wanted to talk about for next season. Like I said, there's a few others, like we said, but but those ones are going to be the most interesting ones to watch because, going back to Devon Taves, there's going to be teams that are going to be waving all kinds of money at him.
Yeah,
and maybe even Francouz as well. You don't know. But, with his injury history, is it worth paying him a little more? That's other teams to find out. That's not our problem. But it's on the horizon. Is what I'm trying to say. So definitely be interesting being contract years to see how they play, because that's another thing we didn't even discuss is how are they going to be on contract years, because it seems like every last freaking player in the NHL, when they're on a contract year, their last year of their contract, it just played outrageously good.
Of course.
Twice as good as they'd ever do, and
that's how you get. That's how you get
a bunch,
the money,
and then they go right back to where they are.
That's how you get the money.
That's exactly right. So, okay, switching gears here. Let's kind of talk about this season that is going to come, and we'll talk about it as a whole before we then rip it apart. So, looking at the division, we're just going to look at the division itself. How do the Avalanche stack up? Seeing the teams that are now kind of gone up in the echelons, gone down in the echelons. Who makes the playoffs? Who do the Avalanche still retain first in the division? What do you think?
Okay, look at division. First off, I'm going to point out 3 teams that I don't think are going to be there. Winnipeg, Chicago, and Arizona. Reason why I say that is because they've never, they may play well early on, but then they fade away. The ones I think are going to make the playoffs, and I hate to say it because I can't stand St. Louis, but it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be Dallas. Dallas is solid. Yes. And they really put it to the Avalanche last year. I think Colorado will make it as well. Not sure they're going to win the division, but I think they're going to be right there in the playoffs. Then you got the Minnesota Wild. All of a sudden, the Wild are just losing their mind winning games. Just crazy good. Then you got the Nashville Predators, who are always good. And like I mentioned, the hated St. Louis Blues. But those are the teams I think will make the playoffs. Obviously, you got division winner. You got the other, ones that fall into place. If I had to choose which one would win the division at this point in time, given last year, it's a toss-up between Dallas and Minnesota. Those 2 teams scare the heck out of me. Absolutely scare me to death. And I hope that Colorado can match up this coming year. Those 2 teams scare me.
So this one is also a toss-up for me, just because of moves that Dallas has also made, amongst other teams. However, what I am going to assume in this one, and this is a lot to do with head coaching for one particular team, and it all depends on what happens to a particular goalie. So I'll get to that in a second. But right now, as of July 24th, I think the 4 teams that get in no particular order are the Avalanche, the Stars, the Wild, and the Jets.
What?
The only reason, and let me explain.
Come on, man. Hello. Are you okay?
The reason I have the Jets still in there is because of their head coach. He does look what he did with the team in one season. This is all bearing, mind you,
that's true,
on the fact that Connor Hellebuck, their starting goalie, who is a phenomenal goalie, is still there in the season. If he's not, I hate to agree with you here, Bill, because I don't like him either. The St. Louis Blues make the jump. So it's hinging on that moment. But as of right now, their head coach is he's okay. And they still have their goalie. But if any of that stuff changes, granted they had this big trade and Velarde and all that stuff, still a great player. But if any of that changes, my tune's going to change. But
okay, let me ask you a question. Okay, given Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota, Would you rather have in the playoffs to face St. Louis
Oh.
or Winnipeg? Come on, man.
I would rather face Winnipeg.
Really? Even with that hot goaltender you just said?
Even with the goaltending, and I'll tell you why. Is because a guy by the name of Jordan Binnington.
Yeah.
For some, I don't know why reason, when it's the playoffs, Jordan Binnington turns into it's like Jekyll and Hyde, right? He just turns into a completely different
we beat
goalie,
him
and
last
he is
year.
so
I mean,
difficult.
not last year,
We did, and you are correct. However, there was that, I don't know what, the conspiracy,
the injury or whatever.
the injury, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, he's most disliked goalie or player in all of the NHL. But here's the thing: is when he hits the playoffs, he just turns into some type of other beast. Hellebuck, just based off of last season, their one season in a while that they haven't yet went to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Hellebuck had one good game, and the rest they just kind of filled him with holes, and he turned into Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So
good point.
The other reason is because of the play style that St. Louis plays. They are a lot more physical, a lot more unbearable.
Yep.
Winnipeg, yes, they are hard hitting. They are a very aggressive team. However, they can match your speed, whereas St. Louis cannot. But because of that, they sacrifice that brute strength. You know, so St. Louis, they'll injure the crap out of you, but they'll still hit you hit them with this twig, they'll hit you with a baseball bat. So that's why I would prefer Winnipeg.
I just wanted to find out.
Well, and let's hear it from you. Who would you rather between those two teams?
Reason why I say St. Louis is because I can't stand them. I want to beat the team I can't stand the most. I want to beat them. I want to just smash mouth them. I want to just take it to them. And when we beat them, when we won the Stanley Cup, oh my gosh, it was elation for me. I loved every minute of it. But in a realistic realm, how you're saying, Nashville will be the easier of the two teams because you were not going to get, your key players, crushed. Like, we lost some players against St. Louis, and you're right, that's where the depth came in. But I can't stand St. Louis. I don't like them in baseball. I'm a Cubs fan. I can't stand the Cardinals.
That's right.
I don't like St. Louis anything.
Oh, that's right.
I can't stand them. So, so if you're asking me who I'd rather take out, it would be
it's just for the pure joy of beating them.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. That's the fans. That's the fans' response right there.
Right here, brother. Right here.
So to go back to the second part that I need to answer, who gets first place in the division?
Ooh,
this one is actually going to be very tough. Kind of like with what you said, where you think it's a toss-up between Dallas and Minnesota. I think it's a toss-up between Dallas and Colorado because of the pieces that they got the offseason. They bulked up their depth, which helped them in that cup run. They are a deeper team. They have, I think, I don't want to call them better substitute players for the players that they replace, but just, I don't know. You looked at last season with all the issues and crap that they were going through, and they still were able to squeak out barely first place. Again, this is all dependent on health of the team too. If they find the rhythm, if they find that stride, I'm hopeful that they can handle first place. But seeing as how Dallas made some great moves of their own to upgrade some key positions, that's where it's kind of like they've matched just step for step. So, and Minnesota's just as good in there. It's literally all three down to the wire. Probably going to be the same thing like last season. All of them have kind of taken upgrades, so I wouldn't be surprised to see any one of those three just take it and run, to be honest with you. It's going to be tough, though, because, teams started to figure you out last season, which is why you didn't do as good. And we'll talk about a certain team that figured us out and kicked us out of the playoffs here in a little bit. But I think it's going to be between those two teams. Minnesota could definitely be in there too. I can definitely see that.
The problem I have with Colorado is this: not taking anything away from what they the run they went on last year, but I'm not going to get into the next topic. But I'm just going to like overfly part of that by saying that Colorado, in my opinion, there were times where they had lapses, and they did not, they get out to 2 or 3 goal lead, and all of a sudden they would go into prevent defense, which I screamed at the TV every time they did. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Don't you understand? And things like that bother me. When I look at Dallas, I look at Dallas as determined from the time the first puck is dropped to the time the last buzzer goes off in the third period. Minnesota the same way. Minnesota took it to Colorado last year. So did Dallas. And it just seemed to me that Colorado at times were just content to have a 1 or 2 goal lead. Oh, we got this game won. No, you don't. You don't. You have to play, 60 minutes. Plain and simple. You can't play 58, 57, even 58 and 30 seconds. I've seen goals scored. You can't do that. And then you go to overtime, they get dejected. No, I see, going on what you said, if Colorado can reignite what they had in that championship season and go into this season with that same passion, that same energy, yes, we can win the division. Otherwise, I say it's a toss-up between Dallas and Minnesota, and Colorado falls to the 3rd spot.
And it's totally possible, because first place for whatever, you tend to have, and I say this with take it with a grain of salt, you tend to have the easier route to the playoffs, right? Which is kind of what everyone was like telling the Colorado. They said, well, you had it easy. You played Nashville round 1. We played Nashville round 1. That's right. And we just swept right through them like they didn't even exist. Same with Edmonton, right?
Yep.
It's that confidence, that swagger that team had, that I want to have that back, right? Yep. You can't hinge everything on 3 guys especially with your captain being gone.
Well, not only that, but last year the Avalanche were the favorites to win the Stanley. Everybody's shooting bullets at them. I mean, everybody's shooting darts at them. We're going to take these guys down. We're going to elevate our game to show them that we want it more than they do. And Colorado, in my opinion, came on the ice last year in the playoffs and said, hey, we're the defending Stanley Cup champion. All we got to do is show up. Well, yeah, you showed up and then you went out the door. So you can't have that. You got to have the determination. And I think you're right.
It's funny you say favorites. Even though Vegas are the most recent Stanley Cup champions, do you want to know who people? This is I think from this is BetMGM. Do you know who they pinged the favorites to win the cup this year?
Nashville. Tampa Bay.
We're talking about them.
Colorado.
They pinned Colorado at a +800 as favorites to win the cup again.
Well, see, there you go. And that's what I was saying. You got to have the determination. So they know what it feels like.
That target's back on your back. Yep.
And they lost last year. Now they're saying, oh, wait a minute. We totally screwed up. We got to go back to our mentality. Yeah, I think that's cool. I like it.
Yep. And we'll talk. I want to put a pin in that conversation real quick, because I do have something that I wanted to address with that odds being released. But first, let's just quickly go through our Hockey 101 lesson before Bill takes us to school. So in this week's Hockey 101, we're going to be talking about positions, just to make sure that everyone's got a idea for how positions are, the attributes that they're looking for, stuff like that. Should be fairly simple. People should already know, but we need to address that first before we then talk about shifts, strategies, setups, entries, that kind of stuff. So really quick, let's go. It's going to be, super quick, couple minutes probably is all, but
no problem.
There are 5 skaters on the ice along with 1 goalie. right?
Right.
That makes your full strength.
Mhm.
Five skaters, one goalie. The skaters consist of 3 forwards and 2 defensemen. In the forwards, there are a left wing, a right wing, and a center. And on the defense, there is left defense, right defense. However, it's kind of just if your defense, right? Most people don't really pay attention much to left or right. So going to the forwards, we'll start front and work our way back. Going to the forwards here, you have the center position. The center, he is, I guess, as far as the body build, he's the big guy. He's your muscle, right? The robust type of guy. And everything that happens on the ice will feed through him. He's kind of the all-around, do-it-all type deal. He's not always the quickest, but he's always the most well put together, most well-rounded, right? He's the one that typically will take face-offs at the center dots, at the face-off dots on either end of the ice, but he'll be the one to do that. He is also one of the go-to skaters for production.
Sorry, I just got to put this in there. Hey, what hair? What hair? Sorry, man. I just had to.
Oh, Ray, that was great. I think I saw another comment like that earlier. I think it was from Avatar. But anyway, so the center, he's also kind of the go-to guy as far as your point, your scoring. A lot of people will give it to him because he tends to have one of the hardest shots, one of the most select shots. Like I said, everything from offense to defense goes to him. He participates in kind of everything. But his offensive, I guess, calling, if you want to call it, is to score goals. That is his primary objective. Secondary is to help on defense, ironically. He needs to be able to block shots, but also funnel pucks to get him out of the defensive zone if they're backed up against the wall. Apart from that, like I said, winning faceoffs, he'll be the ones to lead rushes a lot of the time, and lead breakouts, stuff like that. So that's the center's duty. Okay, moving on to the wing, and this can go for both left and right wing, so we'll just kind of bundle them up into one. The wingers, they're your speedy guys. They're your kind of beehive going around the sides type thing. They are quick, most of them. They're known for their speed and agility. They're very nimble, very light on the ice, so to speak. Their main objective is obviously supporting the center and getting, assists and shots and passes to them. However, their playmaking ability and their creativeness to get pucks to the net and or kind of those highlight reel moves. You'll see a lot of those wingers have those, between the legs and through to get to a goal. They have that creative ability, the vision to get the puck to where it needs to go. And they, like I said, they can dazzle just as much as a center can. They'll also score plenty of goals, but their main objective is to support the center by being distractive. You've seen a few of them lined up in the net. Sometimes they'll be kind of causing chaos in front of the net. That's kind of their objective, is to cause that for a goalie, an opposing goalie, so a net or a puck could fly right past them. But like I said, they also have their defensive abilities to block shots, clear passes, that kind of deal. And then the last one, as far as the skaters go, is the defensemen. This one it's pretty straightforward. Their objective is to play defense, right? They are most known for their ability to hold their own against oppression, essentially. They are well known to block lanes, clear traffic for a view for a goalie so that he can trap the puck, or in that case, they know how to go after the puck and get it out. They are the ones who kind of clean up on the defense, the defensive zone, to ensure that puck control is maintained, pace of play is maintained, and they do not leave, players unattended. They'll always point out, hey, go get him. They'll point out your defensive assignments, and they're that kind of last piece to gain possession of the puck. That's kind of that last stop to get that puck back. They are the ones who do that. So defense. Last one, real quick, the goalie. I don't know what else I need to say. His goalie objective. Who was it that said this? If you're a goaltender, tend the goal. I think that was. I just lost his name with the Maple Leafs. He's a executive with the Maple Leafs, but he got so mad at one goalie that just left his crease, right? And so he just said, if you're a goaltender, and his voice is getting higher, tend the goal, So, anyways, he is your last line of defense. If something gets past him, you're down a score. So don't need to say much more than that. So, okay. That'll wrap up this week's Hockey 101. So we'll move now to the part I have been waiting for the most. And that is going to be fixes for this Avalanche team. And I guess I don't even need this to be a two-part. This is really just kind of one question asked two different ways. What mistakes did the Avalanche make last season that they need to fix this season? Take us to school, Bill.
The Avalanche made multiple problems, multiple mistakes last year. First off, I mean, I guess it's not a mistake if you have injuries, so I shouldn't really say that's a mistake, but that's part of the equation. The other mistake that drives me insane. Why are you freaking passing the puck so many times to try and create that perfect shot? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. When you get the puck, shoot the freaking thing. You can't score if you don't shoot it. I mean, come on. And then they make ridiculous penalties. Penalties last year hurt the Avalanche more than anything I can think of, other than what I just stated. Passing the puck until Christmas. I'm serious. Making stupid penalties. A guy's breaking away and you chop his legs down. Why? You have a power play. And I mean, I understand you're trying to make the play, but there were so many mental mistakes last year. So many mental mistakes. The defense didn't even protect the goalie half the time. I mean, they're way out, like, I don't know, going on sightseeing trips or something. I don't know what they're looking at. I mean, look at hi, how you doing? I don't know. It's just they weren't even in the game. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Why are you doing this? Time and time and time again. Defense, lack of focus, lack of preparation. I don't know where that comes from. And again, just not playing the game the way they did when they won the Stanley Cup. It was so frustrating. So frustrating. Sorry, man. I got off on a tangent.
No, you're good. This is why we brought you on here, Bill, and you're doing admirably. So I said this last month, and I will say it again. The reason Vegas won the Stanley Cup in such a fashion that they did is because, well, the focus for one, but they let the game come to them. They didn't go chasing a game. They just played their game. Right? A lot of times, and you mentioned this just earlier in this episode, they would go out to a 2-goal, 3-goal lead, and it seemed like they would just coast, or just something fell apart, or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden they lose 5-4, like you said. And same with you, how you were screaming at your TV. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just sitting there going, what happened? The first period was ours. We were doing great. And then they just kind of stopped,
Well, the other thing is the other team makes adjustments. The Avalanche never made adjustments. They kept doing the same stupid things. And the other teams like Vegas or Nashville or Dallas or Minnesota would bait them into doing stupid penalties. And they would do it. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, they're baiting you, and you're taking that bait. And then you see him skate off, the other team skate off, like Minnesota down, and they're like, got him.
Yep. And that was another one, just kind of like what you alluded to, are those defensive lapses. There were a lot more that I saw this last season than the Cup season.
Yep.
And just even from the people from the likes of Cale Makar that would just make these questionable calls. And then, you'd have, Nathan McKinnon or people to the likes of him trying to play hero, and they end up losing the puck, and just they got flustered very easily when stuff ended up kind of buckling, instead of, like you said, making it those in-game adjustments or even adjustments after the first intermission or second intermission to then focus on their game, focus on what they are best at. And just stuff ended up not working in their favor. There were a couple games, during the season where it's like, yeah, this is exactly what we want to see. They win 7-0, 6-0. And it's like, it wasn't that hard. Like
I'm just wondering if the pressure of repeating and the energy that other teams brought, because they brought their A game every single time they played the Avalanche. They brought their A game, no doubt about it. I'm wondering if the pressure of repeating and the pressure from Vegas and everybody else that said they are favorites to win it again. I'm kind of wondering if that was too much for these players to handle.
Yep. And keep in mind, during this conversation, we're setting injuries aside. We know injuries had a big part of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about the team that was set on the ice. It shouldn't matter what the injuries ended up being.
But there's a lot of young guys.
But there were a lot of guys out. But just keep in mind, this is just on the ice action.
Yep.
So to answer your question, and I'm going to go, and I'm reverting back to this now that the Avalanche per MGM, BetMGM, are favorites to win again. They have that target on their back. Even though Vegas won the Stanley Cup, they'll have their own target, right? Vegas, they have their own deal that they're going to have. The Avalanche still are the favorites to win that cup. So this is the question. The pressure that was applied, and this is how I'm going to take the season.
Okay.
The same pressure that was applied from 31 other teams throughout the season is going to be the same pressure they're going to apply again. These are the adjustments that need to happen this season that just didn't come to fruition last season, which is why come playoff time, Seattle had your number in 7. Right. Yep. And so with new players coming in, with hopefully a more sound idea of, these guys are actually serious, and that 60 minutes of pure Avalanche hockey that they had that cup season, where every game it just seemed like they couldn't lose, that's what needs to come back is the play with urgency, not panic, urgency, and for a full hard 60 minutes.
Okay, so are you saying that the pressure is back on the Avalanche or the pressure is on the Knights?
So there's two different kinds of pressures, right? And how I'm seeing
I'll answer it differently.
There's pressure as defending the cup, being the most recent winners, and there's pressure as being the favorites to win. Both of which they're very similar, but they kind of have their own type of thing. There's pressure as saying, this is the same team. We won the cup just barely. We need to show that we won it with purpose and blah, blah, blah. And there's pressure saying like, the league thinks we're the best, even after whoever else won the cup, and everyone else is going to take notice of that. Right. So it's two kind of different targets, but if you want to look at them the same, I can definitely see why.
Okay, here's my take on that. The Golden Knights are absolutely ecstatic that they're not the favorites. Absolutely, they're ecstatic.
I bet.
They have nothing to lose because they're putting it all on Colorado. Colorado has the monkey on their back. The Golden Knights are like, this is great. All we have to do is go play our style of game. Nobody expects us to go back to back because they're picking Colorado. Colorado didn't do crap. Didn't do nothing last year. Didn't do anything. They got knocked out by an expansion team for the second time in the playoffs. So hey, there's no pressure on us. It's all on Colorado. So the Golden Knights are loving this. The problem that I see with Colorado is now the monkey's back on their back. And they're like, oh my gosh, now we got to perform. And now we don't have, Johnson. And now we don't have, these other guys. And we brought in some key players. But yes, we have to gel. We have to elevate our game. That's the concern. Because the Vegas Knights are just going to walk into the season, literally. This is how I see it. Walk into the season going, breath of fresh air. We don't have any pressure. We can go out and play our game. Colorado's the team that has the pressure. We're golden. No pun intended. We're golden.
and even so, if you kind of turn that coin on to the other side, you could even say Colorado being the favorites gives Vegas even more motivation because they're like, we won the Stanley Cup and you don't think we're the favorites?
Exactly.
And then that kind of makes them upset, makes them get more drive. And so now you know that team's coming after you. Any other team that thought they were better than you going to come after you. And now by the end of the day, you're going to have all 31 teams right back after you. Because the league pinged you again as the favorite to win. And that's always the worst one to have, especially when the season hasn't even started, is the league is trying to just create this this drama, I guess, if you want to call it. And it's up to the team. It's up to the players you put out on the ice to, I guess, take away that target or make that target unhittable.
So let me ask you a question.
Go for it.
In your opinion, do you think the Avalanche will be up to the task going forward?
I have faith that they will.
Okay.
A big reason why is because I have seen, not just even recently, 2 seasons ago, and bits and pieces, obviously, of this last season, I have seen what they are capable of. I have seen them take games back from when they were basically gone, right?
Sure.
That cup run, it seemed like every third game was a come from an outrageous behind moment to all of a sudden win. Whereas this last season, it was you had the lead, you knew that you had the lead, but then you lost it, right? So I think, with the new faces that are here, especially, a lot of people are going to be looking at Jonathan Drouin being, old teammates with Nathan MacKinnon. You're going to be, if we start out hot, my confidence is going to be embedded because I know what the potential is, right? What does scare me though is that other people have kind of they figured you out last season, right? It's changing your tune, changing the equation of how to solve the Colorado Avalanche. If they can do that, I have no doubt in the world that they are going to be more than up to the task. What about you?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, absolutely good point. I don't see any reason why not. I look at the new players and I look at sorry, I got hiccups. I'm drinking water like all day. It's like 99 degrees here. Got the air conditioner on, but got the hiccups because I've been drinking water. So anyways, I'm sorry guys, apologize. But no, I see the new players that the Avalanche have coming in, and I just want a good mix, a good mesh, a good chemistry, and I think that it's going to happen. I just want to see how the first, and this may sound weird, I just want to see how the first 20 games go. If we can win 12, 13 of the 20 games, I'd say, okay, we're solid. If we go 8 and 12, that's a good start. But I don't see it. I see us winning a lot. I see us winning a lot of games because I see the Avalanche being more hungry after what happened last year. I mean, you lose to the Vegas Knights in their inaugural season in the playoffs, and you lose the Seattle Kraken in their inaugural season in the playoffs. That's got to burn something under your skin, man.
Yep, I agree. And players to the likes of Nathan McKinnon, they're not just going to let that slide twice.
Nope.
He's going to make a point to tell the team he's not letting that happen.
Yep.
Granted, even though they didn't have a captain and whatnot, they knew what the season that they just had was like.
Yep.
So they are going to have, other players fill that, I guess, captain figure while Gabe Landeskog is out for the season, unfortunately, even playoffs, they said. But they know what it's going to be like. And I agree with what you say, the first 20 games or so, if they're able to win, 12, 14, 15, whatever it is, I think, that chemistry will gel, and it's just a matter of playing hard hockey for 60 minutes every single night.
So let me ask you a question. Where was I going with this? Completely forgot. I mean, I turned 65 3 days ago.
Everyone wish Bill a happy birthday. He turned.
Bubba Gonzalez's same birthday as me.
Yeah.
So,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday, July 21st, 1958 for me. So I'm 65. Anyways, I know what I was going to say. You were talking about the team and stuff. Do you think that Gabriel Landeskog is going to come back at all on the Avalanche team? Because I don't know. He's been out 2 straight seasons.
Well, that's the thing, is we know what it's like to not have Gabe Landeskog play, right? Mm-hmm. So if it gets to the point where he calls it a career, we'll at least have been without him for a couple of seasons, so it shouldn't sting as bad. Now, that being said, it's hard to see the future, right? No one can do it. Darn it, right? But, I feel like Gabe is going to do everything, and we know this. He's going to do everything in his power to come back in the 2024-2025 season, right? I have no doubt about this. I think you're just going to have to take the time and see. Now, to my personal answer is yes, he'll come back.
Wow.
Is he now the question that I don't have, where that's a gray area for me, is he going to be the same Gabe Landeskog from before? That one I don't I don't have an answer for you, but I know in one way or another he's going to come back. He still has plenty of gas left in the tank. He might take this, he will take this season off. He might even take the next one off. Who knows? But he'll be back. I know he will.
All right. I have a question I've never asked you. I'm going to ask you for the first time on the show, obviously. Mm-hmm. What about Val Nichushkin?
Oh, and his whole thing. I don't know. As far as we're concerned, he's cleared to play, and there is no police investigation, and that's all the news they'll give us. And as far as what the league has said, they said we know the situation. We, as the league, knows the situation. Mm-hmm. We, the organization, the Avalanche, know the situation, and Nichushkin knows the situation. And as far as we're aware from the news that we're given, everything seems to be kind of okay. Up in the air for sure, because obviously there are questions that even I want answered.
Yeah. Think
my biggest concern is, does this affect him on the ice?
Yeah.
Right. Does this translate?
Well, how about his teammates?
Or his teammates or whatever. Yeah. But I follow him on social media, and he seems like he's out there and having a great summer with his wife or his girlfriend or whoever that is, and he seems no worse for wear. So I don't know. I don't know, but that's always going to be something that does linger in the back of my head, because I do want answers myself. Maybe they'll come one day, but
I know that wasn't one of the topics, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Because you're good. Real. I know Brit and I talked about that just the very episode after it happened, and we were just like, and we have no more information than the day it happened, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there is one last question. We will get to this once Brit's here next week. But any thoughts on Kovalenko coming over from the KHL to join the Avs? This was a very sought after, I guess, player, and the fact that they're letting him finish out this season and having him sign with the Avs, I'm interested to see where this goes. Right, just because this particular prospect of Kovalenko is he's fun to watch. He is a different breed of player. You know, he is very mature for his age, but and like I said, we'll talk about this here in next week. But I'm very excited to see if they could get him, this next season. Or, because I think the KHL finishes at a different time. So even maybe halfway through this season, I don't exactly remember how that offset works. But if he's here next season, I'm more than happy to have him on. That should be fun. Now I know there's a couple things. I don't know everything about him. I've only heard the good stuff. So yeah. That's why I say next week we were going to get into it a little bit more. But
good.
No, it should be very interesting. So, okay. I think that'll wrap it up for this week's episode. Bill, I don't know if you have anything to add until sign off, but
no, just once again, just excited to be on the show. Hope I brought enough emotion and passion and stuff like that.
Yeah, you did. So that's enough. That's enough juice for me to. That's enough juice for me to make it worth the squeeze, man. So I love it. So. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it. We loved your guys' participation. Lots of comments in the sections. Definitely some good intel. To answer Matt Valdez's question, we'll definitely talk about that next week as far as Kovalenko's contract and arrival and whatnot. So come back next week, please.
Absolutely.
Once again, and then if you want to follow the MHRT network, so you can get notified when shows just like the Cluster Puck podcast go live and the Broncos breakdown, Bill's show on Fridays. Just follow the MHRT network on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, lots of different places. And then us at the Cluster Puck podcast on Facebook and the Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. We hope you guys have a wonderful, rest of the week. Just about getting to the end of July, Bill. Isn't that incredible?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
We're getting closer and closer.
Closer to
football, 1 week at a time
baby.
to preseason, and then for football, it's getting closer and closer, man. We're gonna get to that beautiful era of kind of fallish, Octoberish, when everything's going. It's gonna be good, man.
Yep.
Okay, like we said, have a great week, and go Avs, go. Take care, everyone.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.